asked McNamara what's going on.
I've been trying to evaluate this thing. We haven't taken any real serious losses, and we can't put our finger on anything that's really justifies this acceleration of an escalation of public sentiment that is going to hell in a hack since you were out there in March. Is that the build-up of our critics largely? Have we fed that? Where does it come from? We're losing it.
The CIA estimators lodge many of the rest of us in private would say that things are not good, they've gotten worse. And you see it in the desertion rate, you see it in the morale, you see it in the difficulty to recruit people, you see it in the gradual loss of population control. Now, while we say this in private and not public, there are facts available in the public domain over there that find their way in the press. And I think this is one way that our people get this feeling of the fact we're not moving ahead.
Those reporters on the ground have it right. The president's middle path is nearing a dead end. Viet Cong guerrillas are spreading across the countryside, while South Vietnamese soldiers are quitting the fight faster than Americans can train them. The president tells McNamara of a memo he has received from Senate Majority Leader Mike Mansfield, a Democrat.
What he comes out and says that he thinks we ought to get out of there, which we can't and not going to. And if we don't, then we got to educate the people as to why we're in there.
That's right. Well, I think he's absolutely right. If we're going to stay in there, we're going to go particularly up the escalating chain. We're going to have to educate the people, Mr. President. We haven't done so yet. I'm not sure now is exactly the right time.
No, and I think if you start doing it, they're going to be hollering you a warmonger.
That's right. I completely agree with you. So this is the major
I think that the horns Republicans would like to get us on. Now, if we could do something in the way of social work, in the way of our hospitals, in the way of our province program, and in the way of our remaking that area out there and giving them some hope and something to fight for, and put some of our own people into their units and do a little better job of fighting without material escalation for the next few months, that's what we ought to do.
The president's hopes for a kind of New Deal for South Vietnam are stymied by the corruption and incompetence of the government there, which is, again, on the verge of collapse, even as the enemy, the Viet Cong, are consolidating more and more control in the countryside. The walls are closing in, and the president turns once again to his old mentor in the Senate, Dick Russell.
I'm confronted with I don't believe the American people ever want me to run. If I lose it, I think that they'll say I've lost, I pulled in, and at the same time, I don't want to commit us to a war, and I'm in a hell of a shape. I can't do. I just don't know.
Well, we're just like the damn cow over a fence out there in Vietnam.
That's right, and Laos, and I've got a study being made now by the experts, which I want you to come over some night and have a drink and see how important the two of them are. Whether Malaysia will necessarily go and India will go, and how much it'll hurt our prestige if we just got out and let some conference fail or something.
I know all those arguments.
The president tells Russell of the advice he's received from his neighbor and fellow Texas rancher, A.W. Morrison.
But they say that, well, a fellow like A.W. Morrison said to me last night, said, damn, there's not anything to destroy you as quick as pulling out and pulling up stakes and running. That America wants, by God, prestige and power, and they don't want... I said, yeah, but I don't want to kill these folks. He said, I don't give a damn. Said, they didn't want to kill them in Korea, but said, if you don't stand up for America, there's nothing that a fellow in Johnson said here, Georgia, any other place, they'll forgive you for everything except being weak.
Well, there's a lot in that. There's a whole lot in that. And
Goldwater and all of them raising hell about go on. That's hot pursuit. Let's go in and bomb.
And they'd take 500,000 men. They'd be bogged down in that for 10 years. And oh, hell no. They'd run.
Well, we never did clean Korea up yet.
No, it ain't clean yet. Right where we started. I didn't ever want to get messed up down there. I do not agree with those brain trusters who said that this thing is... got tremendous strategic and economic value, and it will lose everything in Southeast in Asia if we lose Vietnam. I don't think that's true, but I think it's a practical matter. We in there, and I don't know how the hell you can tell the American people you're coming out, and there's no way to do it. They think that you've just been whipped and you've been run, you're scared, and it'd be disastrous.
I think that I've got to say that I didn't get you in here, but we're in here by treaty, and we can't, our national honor's at stake, and if this treaty's no good, none of them any good. Therefore, we're there, and being there, we've got to conduct ourselves like men. That's number one. Number two, in our own revolution, we wanted freedom, and we naturally look with other people, sympathy with other people who want freedom, and if he'll leave them alone and give them freedom, we'll get out tomorrow. That's the second thing. The third thing, I think that we got to try to find some proposal, some way that, like Eisenhower worked out in Korea, that we can.
I wouldn't eliminate the United Nations or some agreement, because if I think people, if you get some sort of agreement, are all the way around would understand it.
Yesterday, it was Korea. Tonight, it is Vietnam. Make no bones of this. Don't try to sweep this under the rug. We are at war in Vietnam. And yet the President, who is the commander-in-chief of our forces, refuses to say, mind you, whether or not the objective over there is victory. And his Secretary of Defense continues to mislead and misinform the American people, and enough of it's gone by.
Barry Goldwater's acceptance of the Republican presidential nomination comes just a couple of weeks before a dramatic turn of events. While supporting South Vietnamese commandos harassing the North, an American destroyer, USS Maddox, comes under fire from North Vietnamese patrol boats in the Gulf of Tonkin.
Now, I wish that you'd give me some guidance on what we ought to say. I just talked to a New York banker. I just talked to a fellow in Texas. They all feel that the Navy responded wonderfully, and that's good. But they want to be damn sure I don't pull them out and run, and they want to be damn sure that we affirm. That's what all the country wants, because Goldwater's raising so much hell about how he's going to blow them off the moon, and they say that we oughtn't to do anything that the national interest doesn't require, but we sure ought to always leave the impression that if you shoot at us, you're going to get hit.
Well, I think you would want to issue instructions to commanders to destroy any force that attacks our force in international waters.
Still hesitant, still seeking the middle path, the president decides against retaliation. Instead, he sends a diplomatic message to Hanoi warning of grave consequences if there are further attacks. And there are, or so he's told. More attacks the next day on the Maddox and a second destroyer, the Turner Joy. The first reports are confusing and the attacks unconfirmed. But when the Joint Chiefs recommend retaliatory strikes, this time the president agrees. He knows Saigon is looking to him for a sign of strength. He fears Hanoi will exploit a sign of weakness, and he's wary of providing Republican opponents with a political windfall. As reporters besiege the White House for a response, the president goes on television at midnight.
My fellow Americans,
he announces that U.S. fighter jets, for the first time, have attacked naval and oil facilities in North Vietnam.
Our response for the present will be limited and fitting. We Americans know, although others appear to forget, the risk of spreading conflict. We still seek no wider war.
When polls show 85% of the public supporting his decision, the president whips through Congress a resolution giving him a free hand to use armed force to prevent further attacks on American military. Politicians who had privately confided to him their grave doubts about going to war in Southeast Asia now applaud.
Senator, are you satisfied that the vote by the Congress when it comes will be sufficiently impressive to make it clear to the communists that we mean business in that area?
I have no doubt about that. I'm certain that it will be.
I think that we have to retaliate vigorously and effectively every time that the American flag or the armed forces of our country are fired upon, particularly in international waters.
Information long classified would eventually confirm that the American ships had not been attacked that second time, but were reacting to radar shadows on a dark night. The president himself raises doubts about what happened after the fact. But with the Gulf of Tonkin resolution, he now believes he has a blank check for escalating the war. On November 3, 1964, Lyndon Baines Johnson wins a landslide victory over Barry Goldwater, receiving 61% of the popular vote and a margin of 16 million votes, giving his party large majorities in both houses of Congress. He is finally president in his own right.
I, Lyndon Baines Johnson, do solemnly swear.
But he does not have long to relish the moment. There's another military coup in South Vietnam, and more troops from the North are infiltrating into the country, now with weapons from China and the Soviet Union. Just a week after his inauguration, the president receives a memo from his Secretary of Defense and his National Security Advisor.